Hey, howdy and hello. Welcome back in another episode of Tank Teaches. Today we're going to stop and go over a little bit of the rules as Mike and I have come together rule list that we follow to be successful. I think it'll be a good one.
And
All
those
right.
intros always get me going.
I like them. The music's got a jazzy beat.
Yeah, let's fucking get it.
A lot of this has been something that I've been working with Mike and making myself better, that we've kind of have as phrases that we sent back and forth. Like first
Yeah,
one,
we got them typed up here as like rules of T1A, right? But these are like philosophies. This is the way you should look at how you operate within your fantasy leagues and how you're building your squads. Just understand that when you're looking at fantasy, these are the philosophies you should have. But we call them rules because stick by them. They mean
yeah,
something.
you follow rules. Philosophies seem a little more loose.
Schmeh, whatever.
All right, so first one up here we have be like water. Accumulate value in the off season, take value when it falls to you in drafts, use picks like tools. They're there to make your roster better.
Yeah, buddy. Guys will get wrapped up in Dynasty on picks and having to get rookies and things like that. And I remember one thing one of our buddies said. He's like, when I don't have draft picks, I feel naked. And I get that because they are ammo, right? It's
Mhm.
not a player, so it's just a value on a pick. It's all monetary. So
Yeah.
when you have a draft pick, it holds value because it can't get hurt, it can't get cut, it can't go out and get a speeding ticket and picked up by the cops and end up on Twitter, right? So it's valuable. So
Right.
use it, right? Use it to get guys that are going to help your roster, or use it to get the guys you want to go get. Tank's notorious for that. He loves going and getting his guys, and he loves using late second round picks, third round picks, and fourth round
Yeah.
picks to just go get those guys, the guys that everybody's like, that's a jag. And Tony's like, hell to that. That's my guy.
That's my jag.
And then being like water, a lot of it, if it, that ties into like your whole team. If you're looking at your roster and you're just die hard, like I'm going after this guy and so I'm going to build this roster, you're missing other opportunities that are around you. And if you're also just floating around and not really sure what you're doing or where you're going to get, or, what picks you want to make, or, who you might be targeting, you're doing the same thing. You're just floating around with no real direction. Being like water is having a direction, but being open-minded enough to take in all the research and everything you hear and adapting it to what is happening within your league.
Previous Tank Teaches was about draft strategies, and that's where the be like water came. Like, have a plan, but you don't have to tie yourself into, man, I need to go 0 RB. Man, I need to be wide receiver heavy for this draft. No, see what's happening, make a plan as you react. I think this is kind of some life skills stuff too. Is like, you can't plan out your life every step of the way. You're going to have to be like water and take stuff as it comes and flow and make the best decisions you can.
Yeah, stuff happens. You got to be able to bounce back and get back at it.
Next one.
I love this one.
Stick to your convictions. If you fully believe in a player, a coach, a team, or what have you, stick with it. This is your fantasy squad, and you can run it the way you like to. People will always have criticism, and it doesn't mean that they are right.
Now, this doesn't mean go out and be a dummy, right? This doesn't go out and mean like, this guy is the number one top ass running back, and I'm going to go after him, and I'm going to pay whatever it takes. This ties more into if you believe something about a player, like Kyler Murray. There's a lot of swirling different opinions about Kyler Murray and where he's going to be at. If you made up your mind that you don't like Kyler Murray, you don't like how he plays, you don't give a damn what he does, you think he's going downhill right now, stand by that, right?
Yeah.
That is your choice. That's your guy. That's your fucking opinion. That's what you made. Stick to that. Don't be wish-wash with it. What that'll help you do is draw lines when you're starting to talk trades. It'll help guys in your league understand players you don't want to see. It'll make trade talks even easier because you're not going to have to keep dealing with all this fucking bullshit.
Yep.
It also is huge when you're making draft picks on rookies. If you look at a guy and you're watching him play and the stats are there and people are talking about him good, but they're also saying bad stuff or whatever the hell it is, which is going to happen in fantasy.
Yeah.
But if you see a guy play and there's a rookie that you like and you know where you can go draft him, go get that guy. If he's projected to go at like the 206 in your drafts, go up to the 201 and go get him because he's your guy. You're going to enjoy having him on your squad. If you're not going to pay up too much, go and get him. Like, go get him. Stand by your convictions. Stand by what you decide. Once you've made the decision, the educated decision, stand by that.
Yeah, a little bit overlaps, using your picks to get things that you want on your roster, finding the value, what's important to you. Kind of going through like the fantasy math, you can kind of see how players are very similar. I mean, I know some people that value Devonta Smith over AJ Brown. It's a flavor.
Who the hell are these guys?
I don't know, but there are.
Because I would
Don't
love
see it for AJ
Rupp.
Brown because he doesn't get enough targets. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter because he gets big plays. It just depends on what you see fits for your roster. Now, yeah, you could fully believe that Ezekiel it's going to be coming back and have another or running back 1 year. It's not probably going to happen. That doesn't seem like it's a sensible thing. But if you're going between, okay, I get a choice between DK Metcalf and Devonta Smith, plant your flag, move on.
Yeah, just be educated. Have a reason why you did that, right? Because you don't want it to just be emotional. I think. You have to have a reason. You have to have some stats that you looked at. You have to have some things you're taking into consideration, like where the team's going, where the quarterback situation is. You have to take those into consideration and have an educated feeling to it. Standing by your convictions does not mean that you just wake up in the morning and think something and then run with it. Have some reason behind it.
Or watching some podcast and be like, oh, these guys said that this guy's going to be the next best thing. So now that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, word. We're not smart. We're dumb.
We get stuff wrong all the time.
Yeah. We're just brassy enough to get up on here and put this shit up on YouTube for y'all to look at.
All right. Deliberate actions. Don't make a trade because you're bored or a player is hot. Make moves that make your team better. Make a plan and scout your own team.
Word. This is a big one because I have been guilty of all actions. I've made crappy ass trades because I was bored and I just wanted to shuffle up my team. And I've made trades for hot players before because, they're the next hot thing and you overpay and it doesn't pan out. Russell Wilson. And yeah, and I've made trades plenty of times where I didn't take into account where my team was at and just made the deal. And then when I was done with the deal, it was like, I didn't realize that now I have an empty flex spot. So yeah, your deliberate actions, make sure that the trades you're doing, like they don't have to happen right away. Be smart about the trade. Talk the trade out with the guy you're making the trade with. And just be smart and look at how it's going to affect your roster. I know a guy that is probably one of the best fantasy roster building dudes I've ever seen in my entire life. I've seen him take over orphans and flip them in a week. And the first couple of trades that start off, you're like, what in the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah.
But by the time he's 10th trade in, the team's rebuilt and is actually making a competitive move at winning the championship. So, and that's because he does deliberate moves and he thinks ahead and he has that capacity to do that. Some of us don't have the capacity to see 5 moves ahead, right? Some of us are looking 1 or 2 ahead, and that's all we can really see. Be deliberate in what you're doing. Know the moves you're making are good for your team. Be smart, right? Be smart. Right. Don't be giving up a bunch of crap just to go get a hot guy. Just know where that move takes you and always have a deliberate and defined line of where you're trying to take that team.
So we talk about not drafting to trade, but it's going to happen. You're going to have holes in your roster. You're not going to draft a championship lineup in your startup. That's not what happened. So you're going to make some moves, understand where your roster's at. And so that's why I put the scout your own team here. Where is your team at? Go through and see where your team is compared to other teams in your league. I write a notebook every year before the season starts on each team, each league. Where are they at? What are their hot pieces? What could they trade away? Where's their draft capital? I do all of that stuff, and it helps a lot because then it lets me know my team because that's in there in that assessment as well. What do I got? Where am I with my picks? What do I need to make a contender? What do I need to make it, to retool it? Or do I need to tear this thing down and rebuild it?
Yeah, that's a big point to make right there. Good thing to touch on is that you have 11 other teams doing the same damn thing you're doing, and you need to know where you lie in that league, right? There could be 2 just super teams, right? And you're going to age out in 3 years, and those super teams are young, right? They're rebuild teams that actually hit, and so they're going to be really good for the next few years, and you're going to putter out in 3 years, and you're just going to end up in 3rd or 4th. That's something you see when you look at your overall league and evaluate where your team is in that league, and then you go from there, right? You decide, all right, well, these superpower teams are going to be here for another few years. Best move for me is to take all these assets I have. They're going to wash out in 3 or 4 years and hopefully sell them off to somebody who thinks they can go take one of these big dogs down. And then I'll come back, and in 2 or 3 years, I'll be one of the super young power teams there. and I'll take it over then. So that's, yeah, definitely knowing where you're at in your league as far as your power ranking among all the other teams is very fucking important.
I think this falls into also the rebuild, and people give up too much on Dynasty because rebuilds are hard.
Mm-hmm.
To completely taking down your roster to have like a bare bones of 1, 2 good actual players, draft capital, and it's going to take you 2, 3 years to accumulate a good starting roster that's competitive. It's hard, but
Mm-hmm.
you also got to remember, how did you get to that point? What did you do? Did you make dumb trades? Were you bored and just decided to move some players? You got yourself into that spot. It's not fair to get to a spot where your team sucks and then orphan it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help people in leagues. It doesn't help people, want to play in leagues with you. They're like, oh, you're going to build a team, win, and then just leave.
I hate that stuff. Don't do that either. Don't do that either. Don't go into a league, make a bunch of dumb trades because you're just going to go balls out the first year and then not have the patience to stay.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going to leave a league, build that team up, make it good, where the next person that's going to come in can have a shot at least. Make sure you're paying your dues too. And like leave with a little bit of grace, man. Don't just leave and take a big old dump on everybody.
I think deliberate actions, I use that in my real life. Like anytime I take over something, a project, a leadership role, I want to leave anything that I'm leaving better than when I got it.
Yeah.
All right. Last one here. Do your own damn research. I love this. This is one of my favorite quotes that I ever got from you. Like, I was asking you all these questions. You finally got fed up with me. You're like, hey, do your own damn research.
You gotta.
You're right.
You gotta go out and do your own damn research.
You're right, because people aren't going to look at the same thing that you look at. People aren't going to see the stats the same way you do. They're not going to see how a player moves the same. I think this rookie running back class is very much going to be a flavor thing. Is what do you like in a running back, and what do you see as what makes them good? But do your own damn research. Find stats that are important to you that you think correlates to fantasy football success. Don't just go by what one analyst, report, or Twitter feed says. If you want to be successful, look at more than one angle of how a player is successful for fantasy football.
You got to be able to, like, this all really ties into like all of the rules, because to be able to apply all of the other rules that we have, you have to know what the fuck you're talking about or what you're looking at. And if you're not out at least looking at a little bit of film, even just some hype film, go on YouTube and look at a guy's highlights, right? See his big plays that he's making. Who gives a shit? At least you're getting an idea.
I can see a lot even in a highlight. Like, oh, but this guy's did a 50-yard run. All right, well, did he miss a hole? Is he got good vision? There's those things that show up.
Yeah, there's a lot of film out there. I mean, I just got onto I think it's Caddy's Cut Ups is what it's called. I can't tell off the Patreon, but got pushed that way and signed up. It's $2. You get just a massive amount of tape on a bunch of different guys, and it doesn't take long. It's like 10-minute clips, and you can watch, a couple of games of a guy and just get an idea of what you think. But always be doing your own research. Like, find out receiving stats, PPR stats, or reception stats, touchdown stats. Like, just do as much research as you can about guys, learn as much as you can. And then that way, when you're listening to knuckleheads like us and we're talking about what we're talking about, you're piling on to what you already know, because you already know. And so it applies even better, rather than just taking it for brunt for what we say and then getting pissed at us because you lose.
Well, I was watching some BDGE the other day, and Nick came on. I think it was in a short. He's like, yeah, I listen to the footballers. I listen to a whole bunch of other podcasts. And the same with us. We don't just come on and spit, stats and stuff because we do. We find out other information. We see what other people are talking about. We have opinions on what they say. Whether that, we think they're right, they're wrong. Yeah, I know I go through some videos and I'll fast forward over stuff. Some people are super hyped on JSN, so they're spending a lot of video on JSN. Scroll right past that.
Yeah, you don't have to listen to it if you already got your fucking idea on it, or if you already listened to somebody talk about it, or if you just get fed up listening to it. But I think taking a podcast is probably the best way to get in the most information at the most convenient way to go about it. But when you start doing rookies and things like that, you go do your own shit, right? Because you're gonna get a lot of guys that just watch film, and they're gonna have a pattern of their own. And you're getting a lot of guys that just do numbers, but they're also going to have patterns of their own, right? Like, everybody is subject to their own pattern on things. So they're going to look at a player differently. It's not always going to be just strictly subjective and completely right. So
Yeah.
You got to make sure you're looking at your own stuff. I mean, you could hear something about a player that's, oh, this running back is, he's not good at contact balance and he can't catch the ball very well. And then you watch a little bit of film and you're like, well, I mean, his contact balance sure isn't that great, but he's fast as hell and he finds the hole and he knows how to get to the second level. And sure, he's not a wide receiver. That's why he's a fucking running back. But look, when he's running check down routes, he's catching the ball just fucking fine. He's fluid. So, like I'm saying, you see that in something, and that actually takes a player from you picking player B to saying, this is my new player A, and I'm going to take this guy.
I think another thing that I always look at is what changed on a team. Because there's so many people that come on and they're like, oh, this player moved to this team, they're going to do this performance. And like, how can you know? That guy's going to this team and they've got a new offensive coordinator. Last year's stats don't really equate because it's going to be different.
There's some carryover, but you're right. You have to evaluate where guys are moving, especially in free agency and with how much movement we have year to year now in the NFL. Situations change. Guys fall off, guys skyrocket. But one thing you can always do is just watch a guy play football. That's kind of what I do. When guys go new places, I try not to overthink it too much. Try to see like, okay, what are some of these standout detriments and what are some of the standout good things that are coming from this move? And then just be like, all right, what is this guy like at football? Just good old fashioned. If I was going to go out there and play football with this guy, is he good? And then kind of make your evaluations off that. But doing your own research, I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't have time to do it. And this and that. Man, that just comes down to like listening to your favorite podcasts and locking into a couple of people that do some write-ups. And I say it all the time to everybody who's like, I don't have time to do it. And I'm like, what do you read when you're pooping? Because I know your phone is in your hand, right? And I know you're doing something. So use that 10 minutes, just cycle it up. That 10 minutes or however long it takes you to go. I'm not judging anybody, but that time, just use that little bit of time to watch a highlight video of a guy, right? It doesn't take that much effort to just get a couple of ideas on a few guys, set out a little bit of a plan, and just, take your time. You got 3 weeks right now before the rookies are even going to get drafted.
Something like I will do is I've got 5 minutes. I'm waiting for my kid to get out of school. I'll pull up last year's rankings and just look, okay, who finished wide receiver 1? 1 through 12 on the top wide receiver. And just look at the different stats, how they correlate. Like Cooper Kupp, okay, he finished as a wide receiver 2 last year. Wait, he didn't play like half the season. He still finished as wide receiver 2. Like, okay, so what do I need to look at there?
Yeah, fantasy is all about information. Information is king in fantasy football. That's why there's so many Twitter feeds and so much shit that gets put out there. That's why ESPN is always breaking news and all crap like that, is because information in sports and for fantasy players is large. So don't shy away from it. Get deep into it. Assess it at some point on how you get it into your life. You got a 10-minute drive you make to work every day. Listen to 10 minutes of a podcast every day. It'll take you a week to finish it. You'll be out of date, but at least you're listening to something and getting some information. Always make sure you're compiling in information, bringing in new stuff, talking to other people, guys in your leagues. Ask questions. If you're in a league, throw a question out there, like a little poll. Like, what do you think of this guy versus this guy? And see what happens.
I like hitting up people that I don't know that well. Hey, what do you think about this? Even if it's a trade that I don't even care if it goes through, just to try to get some conversation going. Sometimes I want to see what people are thinking on different players. I've got enough of our D-Gen core that we travel with that I like asking questions, see where they're at with stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because there's so many differing opinions.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's all we got for Tank Teaches this week.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Glad we could have Professor Cranny up in here.
I thought that was a good name.
Can't wait for another Dr. Deep Stash coming after the draft. I think that was one of my favorite ones. Next one, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go with Tank Teaches. I think it's going to start going into probably going to look at some draft or some trade stuff, and how to compile a trade, how to talk trades with people, and kind of work around those. Y'all have a great one.